we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today's edition, we have Alexander Slesarenko. He is a core developer of the Ergo protocol. Welcome, Alex.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
So, a lot of people are very familiar with some of the other team members that work on Ergo. They attend the weekly AMAs. They are more active on Twitter usually. I've only recently discovered you actually because of some of your interesting posts regarding the 7Cs exchange listing. And you were talking about having like exchange native DApps, where Ergo can kind of be the settlement layer between exchanges, and you can keep custody of your funds and just interact with the exchanges for some of those cryptocurrency transfers you'd like to do. So could you kind of explain a bit more about what you're working on with Ergo and some of these creative ideas that hopefully we could see in the future?
Mhm. Okay, so currently I'm working with Sigma implementation, which is Ergo script compiler interpreter, which is validating smart contracts on Ergo. And I have been doing this from very beginning when I joined Ergo in the beginning of 2018. So it's like 1 year and a half before the mainnet launch of Ergo. So started from early prototypes of the interpreter and so on. Yeah, so currently I'm still maintaining this. And recently we did a big update of the interpreter from version 4 to version 5, which is now active on the mainnet.
And as for this idea of having exchanges adopt a sort of Ergo DApp and having a community of exchanges settle and communicate with each other using the blockchain, how feasible is that? I've never heard of that until you brought it up on Twitter.
Yeah, so this is a very old actually idea of mine from 2020, I think, which I did some post about this. It was a bit crazy idea. I never thought it will be implemented by any exchange. But recently, this is the idea of proof of reserves on exchanges make more like many exchanges started to think about why not provide proof of reserves, which they have after this collapse of FTX, right? So Binance and other big exchanges starting to think how we can prove reserves to people. And I have not actually seen any proof of meaningful reserves. So they provide some proofs, but it's not what actually everybody would expect to see. To actually nobody, they still holding your keys, right? So this idea, I think, this proof of reserves in a limit. So basically, you don't give your keys to the exchange, and still you can have access to the UI and the exchange experience, right? So I think this is completely feasible in Ergo. I don't know about other blockchains because Ergo has some unique design which is not replicated in Cardano and not yeah, and it's not implemented on Bitcoin or Ethereum. This is a completely separate topic, probably additional blog posts necessary about this. But we have what I refer to as reduced transaction. So this is some technical implementation details which will allow to implement actually these exchange native applications, which will run on exchanges, but you still as a user can control the keys, which is most important security feature.
That's an interesting point that you brought up because as a core developer of Ergo, you're able to understand a lot of the potential for this technology. We hear a lot about Sigma protocols being amazing and all of these tools that are currently available, and in the hopes that developers get attracted to the ecosystem and decide to build here. Since you have different eyes from the general public, you're able to understand this tech. And you just said Ergo is able to do this type of creative idea, but maybe other blockchains don't have that type of capacity. Where does Ergo kind of rank when you look at the overall industry and all of these different market caps, and you have Caspa over here and you have Cardano over there, in terms of technological innovation and engineering?
Okay, I cannot definitely say for the whole industry. Fundamentally, Ergo is like in Bitcoin improvement in some sense. It has some sustainability, long-term sustainability features like storage RAM and others. It's improvement on cryptography part, right? But it also adds smart contracts which are Turing complete. And there is a lot of discussion about this and how it's possible. And we have a lot of applications which already exploit this reproducibility of the smart contracts, right? So basically, we have this combination of security and fundamentals of Bitcoin and also programmability of Ethereum, right? So I don't know how to rank the system which has this kind of combination of properties where it should be. Yeah, so it's hard to say, but I think top 10 maybe. Why not?
What would it take for developers to come out of those other ecosystems, you think, and actually see the tools here and want to build here? Because that has been really the past several years of mainnet, since mainnet launch, the promise that better tools will bring better developers and better developments. But obviously, it's very challenging when we don't have all of this venture capitalist money throwing us into Binance and having all of this fanfare around the cryptocurrency, which is healthy long term. But obviously, a blockchain without proper development and user adoption is in danger with block rewards diminishing to not have profitability and sort of an attractiveness factor. Basically, what I'm trying to say, what would it take for people to embody this idea of that if you build it, they will come? That if you build the tools, the developers will come, because obviously it's not necessarily the driving factor behind how developers pick their blockchains.
So what is your question again?
The question is, what would it take for developers to come onto Ergo and leave their home bases of Ethereum and some of these other places and in search of better tools?
I don't think Ethereum developers are going to switch to Ergo because it's kind of developer career, which is they can be successful in their platform of choice. And there should not be just one platform. So I believe in diversity of different kinds of blockchains with different fundamentals and which basically should be good for different kind of applications, right? So Ethereum is good for one, Ergo is good for another, and Bitcoin has Lightning, which obviously Ergo doesn't have. So I'm mostly thinking about some kind of integration, like Rosen Bridge is a good example. We should think about Rosen Bridge as some universal connector between Ergo and everything else. And there is a roadmap, and according to roadmap, as far as I remember, it's going to be a Bitcoin next after Cardano. Yeah. So in terms of developers, I think new developers should come to Ergo, and we have much better tooling right now comparing to what we had before. We have examples for almost all possible usages of the core API. We have AppKit, we have for JVM and the Java, Scala, Kotlin languages, and we also have Fleet for JavaScript. So, and they are both ideologically, conceptually, I would say, the design of Fleet and AppKit are very close. This is by design, this is intentional. So that, for example, developers who started with like Java developers can switch to JavaScript in some particular application, and somebody who started from JavaScript can switch back to Java. Yeah. So I don't think existing developers should switch, but I think more like new developers should join. So because this is a good opportunity for young developers in particular to start the career. Yeah, so unfortunately we don't have a big inflow of big money, but this is also can be maybe good at from some perspective.
Right. That's a fair assessment, I would say. Yeah. So what has, since you've been on the project since the early days, what has impressed you the most over the past sort of 4 or 5 years in terms of speed of development and where we were at the beginning at mainnet launch and where we are now and where we still have to go? What is exciting about that process, and how quickly has the development really taken off, you feel?
Yeah, I actually impressed by the amount of people who join the project on their own without any funding, and the results which was generated by that efforts. So basically, we don't have much funding actually in Ergo ecosystem, right? And so this is what we have is mostly people who find their way to join, finding. I think this is very good for long-term sustainability of the community. And the community, because of this, actually, the community is very responsive. If you join in the community, you always find the help in Discord. All the discussions I see in our Discord channel are very constructive.
I see, right. So what is still to come that, apart from Rosenbridge, that you think is something that could be fundamentally important to bring on that we still have yet to do? Maybe it's under development, maybe nobody's developing it yet.
I think level 2 solutions.
Level 2 scale.
So we need to because Ergo level 1 protocol is a settlement layer. So this is a similar like Bitcoin and Lightning, right? But because in Ergo we have smart contracts. So for smart contracts, we need to have level 2 solution, which will also improve the smart contracts execution to speed up this part. And so we need to. I'm not actually expert in this kind of second level solutions. Yeah, but generally what we need to like seconds of transaction confirmation time for most of the transactions which are done when you have a mobile wallet or some kind of wallet. which you use, it should be like you scan the barcode of some transaction, you enter the amount, or maybe not even enter, just confirm, you sign with your keys, which is secure on your mobile, never leave the device, right? You press the button, and in a couple of seconds, it's done, right? That's kind of speed should be somehow implemented. This is not possible on the core level 1 because the parameters of the core protocol are designed to be resilient under attack, right? And so this 2 minutes block interval has a reason. The reason is to provide not very good network connectivity. So you have not very good network, you still can participate in the network. So it makes the network more open and accessible, right? And we cannot improve. We can improve it only by sacrificing decentralization, right? And we don't want to sacrifice this decentralization on the core level of level 1. So on level 2, we need to have some additional solutions which will be focused on speed, scalability, maybe some security and the decentralization compromises, trade-offs. So it's always about trade-offs. So we have core level 1, and on level 2 we can have different set of trade-offs, which will be more focused on scalability.
Right. For the UTXO model and the extended UTXO model versus account-based modeling, obviously we're aware in this community that UTXO is usually the way to go for most things. And we see the bottlenecks that can occur when you want to scale a layer 1 account-based model. And it's also probably not best for privacy to have that type of model. Could you touch a bit more on the power of extended UTXO and how that may differ from standard UTXO that Bitcoin pioneered into space, like kind of a beginner advice?
Yeah. So extended UTXO is first of all is smart contracts because in Bitcoin we have classical UTXO, and we have contracts in Bitcoin also, but those contracts are very limited in what kind of logic you can express with the contracts. So basically, you cannot access a lot of data from the contract. You cannot access the transaction data, like which kind of inputs in this transaction, which kind of outputs in these transactions. That's something which is available in extended UTXO. So basically, it's extended in the amount of data which is available for the contract. And because of this, also the language of the contract itself is extended in terms of how complex logic you can express in the language itself. In Ergo, in addition to extension in the data, there is also extension in cryptography, right? So Sigma protocols is a generalization of a signature scheme. And I suggest to read my recent blog post about Sigma protocols, where I do some introduction, what it is, and what is additional capabilities, what it's like what kind of signatures and what kind of logic can be expressed using Sigma protocols and why it is important. So this is another extension of classical UTXO. And in Ergo, we have additional capability where actually the contract execution is decoupled from cryptography. So that reduced transaction is possible. So basically you can ask any node to execute your smart contract, and then you get the reduced transaction, and then you can sign this transaction on your mobile device without. So basically, if, for example, Cardano or Bitcoin or Ethereum require your key in order to execute transaction, in Ergo is not required. So in Ergo, we can it's possible to execute transaction and smart contracts without keys. So it means any node and everywhere it can be possible to execute transaction. And only the last step you can do with the keys by signing the transaction. And this is a key idea behind the Ergo Pay, why it's possible to create, take very complex transactions, then create QR code, show it on the screen, and then with a mobile device, which holds the keys, while it's possible to sign after that. And it doesn't matter how complex this transaction, it's implemented on Spectrum network, it's implemented in other applications, completely different smart contracts, completely different logic, and usually complex logic. But still, when these applications execute smart contracts, they show simple QR code with reduced transactions, and then it's signed. So I think this is another feature of Ergo, which is extending the classical UTXO model.
Does the current regulatory environment that kind of the international community is seeing take place here in the US, does that ever concern you or anybody that you know on the team? I don't believe so, but I would like your take on that. Since Ergo is built to be resilient, and obviously the goal here is to be uncensorable, right? Censorship resistant, similar to Bitcoin. Does any of this concern you at all? What's going on over here?
Yeah, actually, the lack of regulation, I think, concerning. So it's not about no regulation. I don't believe we will have a situation where we don't have regulation. There should be some regulation, but it should be clear what kind of regulations, what are the rules. So the situation when fully regulated exchanges like Coinbase and Kraken, right? They were regulated for years, and they thought that they behave according to regulation, but it turns out they are not, right? They have this laws, I don't remember how it's called, but basically they are suing right now with this SEC, right? So they have this situation where they're charged with some violation of kind of regulation, right? So, but there is so it's a signs of lack of regulation. So I think there should be clear rules it will be good for all the participants, for industry, for developers and startups of new projects, and for users who will not be victims of some frauds like FTX. FTX is actually it has nothing to do with crypto. I think it's more like centralized entity which was using some lack of regulation, and then they stole a lot of money of the users.
So with that being said, when it comes to something like Ergo, do you believe that since there is no entity to knock on the door of, I mean, yes, there's a legal counterparty to be able to get onto exchange listings, and I believe that's based out of Singapore or something like that, where it's kind of out of any difficult territory. But for the most part, does this just basically highlight the importance of open source, decentralized, censorship resistant protocols? Because When you have things like Solana or the Ethereum Foundation, you have somebody's door to knock on and say, look, I want you to do this or I want you to do that. We've seen OFAC blocks, compliant blocks on Ethereum, and then they go down and they go up. So is that something that's important for you as you work on this project with Ergo, that you kind of have the same properties of Bitcoin, but you're not limited by the same properties of Bitcoin?
What is your question again?
It When you're working on something like Ergo, does it just these types of situations just highlight the importance of working on something like that versus something that could be a venture capitalist funded project from the startup that shares more similarities to a tech startup than, an actual open source software that anybody can use?
Yeah, this was one of my motivation, my personal motivation to join Ergo is this core values of the community-driven project, I would say. So we basically thought that at some point foundation will disappear, the funds will be over, and at that point we hope community will be sustainable, right? So basically, if somebody want to replace me, for example, as a core developer in developing Ergo script and developing Sigma interpreter, I would be happy to pass over my experience to that guy, and so that he can continue. So it's a lot of things to still to do, and so if somebody wants, I am happy to just give this to him. Yeah. So this is basically to make the project sustainable and so that community can continue developing even without me, for example.
What future developments are you most looking forward to apart from Rosenbridge? What are you working on personally? What's the next step?
Well, I did AppKit implementation, first version, and still maintaining it. Yeah, so basically, I still have a lot of work with Sigma and AppKit at the moment. We still don't have multi-sig implementation in mobile wallet, for example. And because in Ergo we have Sigma protocols implemented in quite general way, like any combination of any very complex logic, like A and B, like Alice and Bob both sign it, or Alice or Bob, one of them sign it, or any K out of N signatures was presented, and this can be combined. So like either this group of people sign it or this group of people sign it, right? So all kind of multi-sig logic is possible already in the core code protocol, but it's not yet implemented in application. It's not implemented in SDK. So it's opportunities and the area of improvement of the core ecosystem tools of Ergo, and also once they are implemented in the tools, applications can start to think about and use it.
Right. I wanted to ask you about forks. What is your take on kind of forks? From my understanding, having an open source protocol that anybody can go and fork, as in the case with Ergo or Bitcoin, actually, it seems to have a phenomenon that kind of emboldens the original protocol, no? Like the more forks Bitcoin had 10 years ago, the more resilient it felt that Bitcoin became. That, yes, there was value locked into Bitcoin SV and Bitcoin Cash, but it almost like emboldened the original protocol, right? As you get Raven coins and things like that. Do you feel that basically the forkability of Ergo kind of helps to highlight Ergo even more, ironically, because it's more people are interested in the technology? Like it would be almost bad if nobody forked Ergo in a way.
Yeah, so successful fork with market capitalization is a sign of success of the regional network. So why not? Why not? So if people brave enough to do this, why not? Somebody can do this. I think this is a matter of time, and the adoption and the sustainable market capitalization of Ergo. At some point, this will be economically reasonable to fork, to do some changes, or maybe some meme coin on top of Ergo, and which will be some speculative market project, so people can earn money out of it. I don't think it's good, but I think it's possible. I'm specifically don't like speculation on the market.
Where do you stand on this idea of trying to court centralized exchanges to list ERG versus developing cross-chain decentralized exchange capabilities and DEXs overall? Do you think
Yeah.
we should be focusing on both, or we should just be let go of the centralized exchanges, let them list you if they want to, kind of like 7Cs did? Where do you stand on that?
Yeah. First of all, I think we should have at least one exchange in United States regulated, and it's also a question who will fund it, because there should be some amount of money involved, and usually exchanges ask for some amount of money, not maybe directly, but at least for market making. And so the question is where to get this money, considering that the foundation funds, for example, are limited. And I'm not sure foundation should spend money on listing. This is questionable. And definitely not spend on more than one US exchange. Other than US, I don't think we need to pay exchanges at all at this point, because we have quite enough capabilities. Maybe not for US. This is different situation, because usually many exchanges not allow US citizens, for example, to participate, as far as I know. So that's why I think we need at least one US exchange. So just for people to have this on ramp, or how it's called, I don't remember.
Fiat on ramp. Yeah.
On ramp capability to move fiat money to crypto somehow, but they still can do this using other exchanges. You can buy Bitcoin legally for your fiat money, right? And then you can just do exchange to exchange transfer and then buy Ergo. So I don't think this is some kind of limitation, principal limitation. It's just not convenient to do.
Right.
So if somebody wants to buy Ergo, there is no reasons to not buy at the moment. Maybe not convenient, yes. Another option, I think, is that's why I actually brought it up again, this old article about exchange native applications. I think if this 7 series exchange will implement this idea, I think this will be one of a kind exchange, which will be like next generation of both security and user in control. And I will personally use this exchange because the keys are mine, right? So it's I think it's necessary to think about more this idea and to maybe design some how exactly it should be implemented on the exchange side. I don't. So in general, I know how exchange work as like any web application work, right? But there are some specifics, and it should be integrated with Ergo more tightly, I would say. Because basically what you need to do, you need to have daily or weekly, maybe daily settlement of all the funds you have on the exchange. They should be transferred back to your account daily. So you want to trade, you send money to your exchange account, exchange do their work, and then when they close the day, they need to settle back all the funds automatically to your wallets. And you can repeat. If you want to do this next day, you can kind of repeat it again, or you can assign for how long you transfer your money to exchange. This is all part of the solution, I think, that can be elaborated.
It might come into conflict with some of the real incentives and exchanges have to hold custody of your coins, similar to a bank and similar to FTX collapse, offering that level of transparency and settlement, and because obviously we see that you would, yeah, as many banks do, they give you an IOU, you have the balance in your banking app, but in reality they're using it to invest in other things that can be much riskier, and then they cannot make you whole. But that would be great if somehow that was baked into regulations as well, that you must comply with something like that. You can't keep users' funds, which is a stretch, I would imagine. So I would see it as a voluntary measure that exchanges would have to take for those that are concerned about keys and privacy and things like that. And it looks like 7Cs, that seems to be kind of the mission statement, right? Privacy and things like that. You mentioned before that you felt that Ergo there was no reason it could be top 10. When you first joined this project, or this initiative, I should say, were you surprised to see us so low in the market caps and still so low compared to the technology and potential there? Or is this just a normal part of the evolution of things?
Yeah, I think this is maybe bad timing bit. So we started on the crypto winter, and at the times of the last bull run, we did not have all the tooling we have right now. And we now currently, again, it's kind of crypto winter. And this uncertainty, it's not so it's hard to say what is the reason of current market condition, but it's definitely uncertainty of political uncertainty and regulation uncertainty, and this geopolitical uncertainty. It's a lot of different factors. So basically, all the risk assets, even all the risk stocks, for example, they are on very low this year, since all-time highs. So it's not only crypto, all risk assets currently. and people looking for some safe havens, right? So buying bonds. It's
Mm.
so the capital is moving in not in favor of crypto and the risk assets at the moment. So it's hard to say, is it fundamental? I don't think it's some fundamental reasons which we have in the project.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think we really know where we're going as a global community when we're printing money out of thin air and we expect it to hold value, and then you have like groups of countries over there, Russia, China, oh, we're gonna do it in the Chinese yuan, no more US dollar. So
Right, right,
it
right.
kind of feels that in a way all of our money is some sort of government-backed cryptocurrency anyway, right? Nobody deals in cash anymore. Everything's I'll transfer you money from my bank account to yours, you know. Nobody wants, some places don't even accept cash here in the US after COVID, right? For sanitary reasons. So I agree with you. Fundamentally, it should be emboldened these types of technologies, especially when there is this very complex game theory with proof of work mining that makes sure that it is backed at least by energy, you know, which is a great starting point. Historically, right? Mining, just the idea of it, and we think about all these precious metals that come out of it. It has an
Mm-hmm.
intrinsic link to providing value. And I wanted, I suppose, since I'm asking you for kind of your opinions, you're probably a wealth of knowledge, and this is my first time meeting you. But kind of the
Mm-hmm.
common questions, I'm unfortunately, where do you feel proof of work and proof of stake is? What are your thoughts on that? As proof of work has become kind of unpopular for most projects, for the wrong reasons, I would say. Environmental concerns. How does that affect the soundness of money, right? If Ergo was proof of stake, would
Mm-hmm.
would it still have the same resiliency that we see today with proof of work?
Yeah, I think both kind of consensus protocols make sense, depending on what is your goal. So if
Yeah.
your goal is to have maximum security and inability to trick the system, to change the history, like physically not make it not possible to overwrite your history, then proof of work is a solution. And consideration about energy consumption, this is again, I think it's kind of a politically motivated narrative about yeah, so I think it's just politically motivated narrative because a lot of research, a lot of examples, and a lot of evidence that mining becomes greener and greener over time because simply because it's more economically efficient to mine when you are close to some some guy like oil company doing this. I don't remember this gas emissions of the when they dig the oil, right? They pump it out of the earth, and there is some flare gas, right? This is a free energy. It's just thrown away into the atmosphere. So why not burn it? And while burning, you can mine. This is another one example. Another example is you have wind and solar energy, and it's intermittent by nature. You can have excess of this energy from time to time. So why not make utilization of equipment, full utilization of equipment? And the more the world is transitioning to this sustainable and green energy, the more mining will be green. And it's hard to trick the mining proof of work. I mean, you need to spend energy in order to rewrite history. And the more deep you want to rewrite, the more energy you need to spend. Right? So there is no way to change the history without spending energy. And so at least not changing the history if the goal, at least not changing the history, it's already enough to motivate spending energy, especially if it's free energy. For proof of stake, if the goal is to have like easy local some local system which will be not global, will be more centralized, but more efficient in terms of energy. Why not? It's a trade-off. If you need security, you spend energy. If you want a solution which is not as secure, but still secure enough, you can have proof of stake. You can settle your transactions which happen in the proof of stake. I mean, theoretically, we don't have such system maybe yet, but it's possible to combine two protocols. So you can have solutions which works on top of proof of stake. It's energy efficient, like millions of transactions happen there. And all of this data on daily basis is settled on the Bitcoin, and the history becomes history which is never overwritten. Because in proof of stake, you can basically, you don't need to spend energy, you can rewrite history. So 20 people can come together and decide to do this. In proof of work, if you want to change the history, it's not enough. It can be done by agreement. You still need to spend energy.
It's clear that everything has its trade-off, and I agree with you. Every goal is it scalability? It's probably going to be proof of stake. If it is accessibility to participating in the minting of new blocks or the fabrication of pseudo blocks, and kind of the imitating the proof of work block minting cycle. I would agree with almost everything. Of course, you do have 51% attacks with proof of work that as a new or smaller cryptocurrency comes online, that doesn't have the same legitimacy as some of the bigger ones. It could be easy to kind of secure a lot of GPUs if you have financial backing to do so. It happened with Firo or Firo coin, which is like a privacy coin, hard fork of Bitcoin with more privacy features than Monero. And somebody got very mad and bought a bunch of GPUs, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they rewrote history, so to speak. So there are many. It's very complex, but I would say, kind of as closing thoughts, do you feel that Bitcoin in its current form can survive long term as these block rewards brutally continue to cut in half, and maybe the transaction fees aren't enough to overcome and sustain miner incentives and support? Is the solution layer twos, proposing some soft fork? What do you think about that? Because it seems to be a huge problem that maybe in 10 years, we don't have enough Bitcoin to sustain that network for miners.
Yeah, probably Bitcoin halving will make the mining not so profitable over time, right? And because the key part of mining is to have large enough energy spending to secure the network. It means either all of this energy will be free. So basically, there is no miner who pays utility bills, only equipment maybe, and that's all. And even in this case, so depending on the scale of the system, still there should be some additional source of income for miners, right? At the same time, I don't see like fundamental reasons why Bitcoin cannot implement something for transaction, like for smart contracts, for example, and so on. So it's possible to make a fork. Probably it's much harder to do, and it's questionable whether it will be possible to do because of the social effects. Not technical. I think mostly social effects. Because having something stable which never changes is very attractive for a lot of participants, no matter what happens. And this can be some risk in the future, definitely. And this is one of the things which one of the aspects which Ergo was trying to solve with storage rent. So that basically at the point when emission is over, there is some mechanism to fund mining, and so that miners can have profit from executing transactions and having some money in their pockets.
My final question will be about privacy. With Tornado Cash, which is an Ethereum based mixer, it was sanctioned and blacklisted here in the US. And as you said originally, with regulations, it could be quite difficult to see how deep that rabbit hole goes, because I think it was a broad condemnation. Like if you had any Ethereum that was originally mixed, it is now blacklisted Ethereum. So in theory, if I didn't like you on the other side of this interview, I could send you some Ethereum that originally has some Tornado Cash. You know, it went through Tornado Cash originally. Now it's a blacklist, and now you hold it in your account-based wallet. So now you are incriminated almost. So I don't follow too much kind of these regulations too much in terms of understanding how far they go, but I think in Southeast Asia, I think it's Huobi, the exchange, or one of those exchanges. They took off all the privacy coins, what they deem privacy coins, off the exchange. Ergo has these optional privacy features that can rival some of the biggest mixing protocols out on the market, like Monero and others. Having that being said, does it concern you, again, going back to regulation, that Ergo can be kind of looked at as a privacy coin, that it's going to be used for money laundering, versus the real feature being to empower individuals to have rights to their privacy?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't see much difference between Ergo and Bitcoin here, because privacy is also possible on Bitcoin using mixing. So
right.
And as far as I know, such kind of solutions are illegal, or I would say forbidden, or not encouraged to be used. Right, like Wasabi wallet. As far as I remember, I never used it, but as far as I remember, it's Wasabi wallet, right? We have similar situation in Ergo. You can use, there is technical possibility to have a mixer, and there is some open source solution which is anonymous for obvious reason. Nobody knows who contributed it, and it just uncovers the possibility, and people may want to use it or not. It's their own choice. I'm not sure about regulation, because regulation is more like bureaucratic response to some events. It's not always wise response. It's often stupid response, I would say. And usually it's like the simplest possible response. If we don't like something, let's just forbid everything. It's
Right.
easy for any bureaucracy in the world to just try to forbid. Of course, I don't think it's a way to go. So some people, we still need privacy, and still a lot of privacy tools under development, and successful tools like and we have open source. Everything in Ergo is open source. So even if the core developers don't implement it, it's still available publicly, and anybody can use and continue. So I don't think it's the issue.
Right. My final quick question to you, do you ever think about how long your involvement in the project will will be around for? How long you can sustain your involvement? Do you ever think about this on a personal level?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so far no plans for changing anything. So yeah.
Wonderful.
Uh,
Wonderful. I want to thank you for your time, Alexander. It was very good to kind of ask you some naive questions because I think the majority of the community has a lot of questions that for people on your end, you know, you understand very well, but it kind of can get lost in transition as well because we're kind of the end users versus the people developing with the infrastructure. So I want to thank you for your time and your patience as well. And thank you for all you've done, obviously, for the protocol and for still sticking with us after all these years.
yeah, thank you for discussion.
Thank you. Thank you guys for tuning in as well. Appreciate it.